Hello and welcome to this session where we'll be looking at machine learning as one of our table operations. To do this part, you will need to log in, and you can do that by going to the top right here and opening up that form and applying your user ID and password. You can register a free account if you don't have one as yet. So assuming we've logged in this part, we'll start out by creating a data table. And we're going to use the class results data set. And just a quick reminder here, in this data set, we have a series of test and exam results, and a final result is calculated as 10% for each of the tests and 60% for the exam. And based on that, we can calculate whether or not the student has passed, which is at a mark of 50%. So in this case, we want to predict whether or not a student will pass given just two test results here. And to do that, we'll go into our object attributes. So remember, the table must have focus. So to get focus, you go to your Document Explorer and be sure that the data table is selected. And then under your object attributes, you will have the option to go machine model. And we'll need to refresh the fields. So click here on refresh fields. And then we will choose past as the column that we are trying to predict. So we want to predict these values. And for the features, as we said, we'll use just the test 1 and test 2 results. And we click on operate here, and it will take a few seconds and the model will train. And looking at these values, we have the confusion matrix here. So this is the number of students the system has correctly predicted will pass. This is the number of students it's correctly predicted will fail. And this is the number of students that the system thought would pass, but who actually failed. And this is the number that it thought would fail, but who actually passed. So you can see that the accuracy is about 95%. And we also have other scores like the recall score and the precision, and then that's the F1 score. So the typical machine learning metrics are available here. So the confusion matrix and the 4 scores that are typically used. And there'll be better labeling in a little while. So that's how easily we can train a machine model. And then let's bring back our interface escape. And then the other thing we can do is if we go to our navigator, so we saw for the data table, we have these operations. If we click on the result, so when we trained this machine model, it also gave us a new object. And this new object, you can see the results there. This new object does give us under object attributes, it gives us the ability to deploy a view as well. So if we click on deploy view, we can see down here now we have a new section, machine model query. And what this has done is created a new interface for us to be able to query the same model. And to explain why we need this, see, when we created this model, when we trained this model to predict passes and fails, that model was created on the server and it's been stored on the server as well. So we want the ability to call up that model and evaluate that model, or to get a result from that model for any other combination of inputs. So if we have a new student who wasn't in this data set, if we have a new student that comes up to us, and we can determine the likelihood of them passing here. So let's say the student had these results for their test 1, then we can just calculate, click evaluate model. You saw it took a little time there. That's because it poked at the server and asked the server to load up that model. And then the server predicted, no, the student wouldn't pass. Let's put in some higher numbers. And in this case, it predicts the student will pass. So you now have a model operating on the server that you can grant access to. So anyone whom you grant access to for this interface will be able to query your model. And you can do some things to clean this up. So if you go under the user interface, go to the navigator and you can hide the raw data and these metrics and so on, so that the user only sees this form, for example. So that's how we can train a model. We can examine the metrics and get a sense for whether it's a good model or not. And we can also deploy that model for use by other people. Thanks for listening.